Hey, what's up everyone? This is AU5. Today, I want to do a song walkthrough of my song Happy Where We Are with Tritonal and Dylan Matthew, and show you a little bit of how the production process and the collaboration process came about. So before this song became a collab with my inclusion, Chad from Tritonal reached out and sent me a couple different versions of this song that they made with Dylan. And one of the versions was this right here. And this is what captivated me the most of the two versions. So I'm just gonna play some of this through so you can hear what this all started out with.
Everything I dreamed of is knocking at my door. I can't find a reason, but I still want more. Am I too selfish? Am I too wrapped up in my head? 'Cause nothing's working, oh nothing. Will we ever be happy where we are? And will we ever see without comparing scars? Just breathe, just be. Maybe we will be happy where we are. Happy where we are. Happy where we are. Focus on tomorrow.
All right, so as you can hear, it's pretty foundational. There's really not much going on. There's just the verse, there's the chorus, there's no drop at all yet, and then there's the second verse, and then pretty much just the repeat of the same chorus. And the instrumental is very vibey. I think it was a very strong foundation, very inspirational for me. So my first stab at this song, we were talking about what we could do with it, and I knew that I wanted to add some kind of very intense melodic emotional drop to it. So I'm just going to start playing some of the things that I added to this. And really, when we first started out, I didn't even get the stems. I just used this reference track that they sent over, cut it up a little bit, did some edits, and kind of just sketched out what I was hearing for a drop and for an arrangement. So there's some stuff going on in the synths that I didn't include in the final part of the song. There's some lead lines that didn't really make it to the cut, but yeah, this is basically. I'm just going to skip through and show you some of the additions.
Everything I dreamed of is knocking at my door. I can't find a reason.
So just messing around with some lead patches here.
Maybe we will be happy where we are.
So I add some of these diva patches in the beginning. This part made it to the cut. I thought this was a pretty nice melody. I have this lead synth here, which is actually made with Serum. It's this keytar lead. Some of these here didn't really make it to the cut, but part of this melody did, such as here. I thought that was pretty strong, so I kept that in there. And I added these huge chord stacks, and this was something that Chad and I were talking about. We were thinking about having something that was like stacks that were like really bright and almost like crispy and sizzly sounding. So how I'm making these is, this is actually two layers. There's this layer, which is just wavetable in Ableton. And I'm using the noise unison mode to get that nice, like, bright and noisy sound. And then I'm also using a Gladiator patch that I made, which is very similar. It's just a little bit buzzier, a little bit more detuned, a little bit less noisy. And then I'm using Dune as a layer, which is playing some different voices, chord voices. And I really like this synth a lot. It's a virtual analog synth. I kind of think of it as a combination between, like, I'd say it's like the next generation of Sylenth. You have some wavetable capabilities, and you could do a lot of really interesting modulation. You could do like oscillator audio rate modulation, which is really cool. So yeah, it's this layer mixed with this layer. And then for this bass, so this is actually a sample from Massive that I'm just throwing into a sampler. And I have some effects going through. If I bypass some of these, you can hear what it sounds like a little bit more dry. So it's just a simple Reese layered with an operator sine wave for a sub. And then how I'm actually getting that eighth note articulation is with Serum Effects. I am using an LFO and some low pass filtering, some distortion, and an EQ. And I'm using some of these sounds down here. And this is also Serum as well. This is a resampled wavetable from Razor, which is one of my favorite synths. It's an additive synth. You can get some really cool, sharp sounds with that. Yeah, and there's also the drum track. Layering some processed acoustic crashes in there. And yeah, I mean, this is pretty much just like the first iteration that I sent over, just to kind of give a sense of, trying to give Chad a sense of like what I'm hearing, and just to see if we're on the same page. So this is the next iteration of my session. This is still before they sent over stems. I wanted to make a drop that was a little more abrupt and just more intense, just really selling like the heaviness and the weight that's being conveyed lyrically. And so this drop didn't make it to the cut, but this is something that we were working with for quite a while, until pretty much like last minute. And the intro is pretty much all the same. I was waiting for Tritonal to get back and, fill in all of the atmospheric, evolving, morphing, pretty stuff that happens in the chiller parts in the verses. And I was really just focusing on the drop, and then trying to figure out an appropriate arrangement. So this is pretty much the drop that I came up with that was a lot more intense. So
maybe we will be happy where we are.
yeah, so as you can hear, there is a lot more bass design stuff going on here, which I'll walk through a little bit of. And yeah, just mix down wise, everything's tidier, louder, tighter. So yeah, from the top, I mean, the drums are pretty much the same. I was a little bit more articulate with the cymbals. I want to do something that was like very punctual, and then like a call and response. So it's like kind of like staccato-y stuff in the first 2 bars of the drop, and then like very like legato, kind of a release of tension in the second 2 bars. The lead line It's that same serum patch is a little bit more modified. Basically, this is just a couple saw waves with some bandpass filtering and a little bit of chorus, and then just put through erosion and just a guitar amp and a guitar cabinet to get a really like kind of raw guitarish sound. And then for these stacks, I added another layer. So yeah, these, the first and the last layer of the stacks are the same ones. They are Gladiator and Wavetable combination, and then the Dune combination with some EQing. And then for that crispiness, that sizzle, I took a combination of those two, and then I layered some white noise with Operator, and I put it through a vocoder, and vocoder has this noise mode, which lets you kind of choose the shape and color of your noise. So you can go from like really smooth noise to like really gritty, almost like vinyl crackly noise. And somewhere in the middle gives you this really nice kind of sizzle. That works really well as a layer. And then on this whole stacks group, I'm using a little bit of trash to saturate it, and then I'm using Kiloheart's tape stop to get that speed up and slow down effect. Without it, it sounds like that. And I think that's a very strong effect. It's a very punctual effect, especially with intermittent basses, which we can talk about. So yeah, here's this respace, doing a little bit more processing to it, and adding some erosion, some soothe, and then this fattening rack, which is just a bunch of compression and saturation. I'm using some sounds from the intro sound from my song with Crystal Skies called Cataclysm, and just introducing that intro pad tuned to the key of this song as intermittent ambiances, along with Dylan's vocal. And let's see, what other basses are going on? So I have, yes, these nice basses. So this is pretty much the same bass, the resampled Razor Wavetable bass that I made in Serum, except I'm doing like a lot more filtering and modulation. How I'm getting that growl effect is it's really just this high pass, this resonant high pass on the EQ. Otherwise, it's just a very like plucky, distorted sound. Limiting that with the Pro L, FabFilter Pro L. And then I have this sound going on here, which, to be honest, I don't even know what this sound came from. I don't know what this is a sample of. And then just, a bunch of processing, flanger, phaser, overdrive, compression, some self-vocoding stuff going on. It's pretty much just doing a sound design session in this entire project just to get some ideas going. And then also this like slow down sound. And this is really just the kick drum that is high passed and distorted. And I'm using an arpeggiator to adjust the rate of repetition of the kick drum being triggered. And you get this cool, like kind of like heavy squeaky door sound. I think of it as like a wooden squeaky door that's just like heavily compressed. And then I have some like random bits in here. This bit bass that's actually from my Freefall sample pack. And this thing here, which just has a lot of different processing on it. If I bypass this processing, it sounds like, And this is Serum with a custom wavetable and some distortion, compression, EQ, and some unison. Couldn't really tell you how I made this wavetable, but yeah, it's just one that I have in the arsenal. And all this middle section for the verses is still pretty much untouched. Just added a little bit more of the diva patch. And then I have another layer. And that's from this really cool synth called Rapid. This is, I think this is just a modified default preset called Synth Saw. And yeah, I thought that was a cool melody. I'm not actually sure if this made it to the cut. It may have, but we'll find out in the other sessions. All right, so this is actually the stem session. This is when they sent over all of the vocal stems and all of the instrumental stems. And the arrangement is pretty much the same, except the second drop is a little bit more developed. Did some mixing stuff, did some editing stuff. I mean, nothing really sounds that much different from the previous session, except in the middle section, there are some new things going on.
Focus on tomorrow, but today.
There is this operator patch that I made, which is really just a sine wave with a little bit of white noise to pluck it, and then I'm using some sine mode erosion to get that kind of like low pass 8-bit sound. Some auto pan, some delay, overdrive, EQ, cabinet, and reverb, and without all this stuff, it sounds like this. Pretty dry and boring.
Focus on tomorrow, but today's still here. Smoking on my problem.
So yeah, the original stems were really cool to just check out. They already sounded amazing, but there's a piano. Muted guitar. Some drones and ambience. Drone bass. Analog synth bass layer. And then, of course, Dylan's voice and all the harmonies.
Without comparing, just breathe, just breathe. Maybe.
And then the second drop. That's where I decided to do a little fake out thing here with the drums, pretty much just cutting out the snares. And then doing some filtering with the chord stacks. I don't know what's going on with that bass. Might be a pitch bend issue. But yeah, this is pretty much the session that I decided to throw all of my instrumentation into stems, render them out as stems, toss them over to tritonal, and then yeah, pretty much have them do all of the really intricate, pretty atmospheric stuff, and pretty much just fleshing out the rest of the arrangement. And it's at this stage where things started to sound really amazing. I was in LA at the time doing a interview for a documentary, and that's when Chad sent over this massive work with all of these stems, and man, was I excited to get back home and to finish this up. So yeah, this is where, as you'll hear, all of this awesome stuff got introduced.
Everything I dreamed of is knocking at my door.
Vocals got really well mixed. There's just some really cool ambient layers. There's so much awesome stuff that's going on in this. Just really cool little subtle stuff happening. And then we finally got a proper rise going on, so the drop isn't this abrupt thing. Yeah, let me just play through some of this drop stuff that they did. Yeah, just all these little subtle things that add together and just make this really interesting, evolving thing that you can just listen to over and over and over and keep hearing new things in it. That's something that I really love about producing electronic music for myself, as well as Tritonal's music. Like, they get it. They're as keen and interested in all of the adding all of these little subtle things that add together and create this synergistic, evolving effect. It just makes the music so much more deep and meaningful, in my opinion. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think this was a really great collaboration, because we're definitely working our own strengths independently, but we, in a sense, it seems like we have a very similar vision as of how we want the song to be executed, and also how in-depth and involved the production should be in the song. And I think it turned out to be a really cohesive end product because of this reason. And this second rise here. So much cool stuff happening. And then this session was also the addition of a proper piano outro. Super beautiful, melancholy, with this feeling of anticipation. Maybe there's like something. To me personally, this is like a very to be continued type of outro. I think it kind of leaves the listener wanting more or expecting something else. There's a continuation of this story. So this is pretty much the very last session. And this is when we decided to, at the last minute, change the first part of the first drop to something that was less aggressive and less abrupt, something that was a little bit more melodic and emotional and legato. This was after we sent it through to Enhanced and Dylan's team, and we all kind of had a conversation about like how this song flows and just what is it saying? Is it really saying instrumentally as cohesive as the message that it is speaking lyrically and metaphorically? And we decided it was the best idea to make the first part of the first drop something less aggressive, and like I said, something a little more emotional and melodic. So after all these stems were rendered, I just decided to re-import all of the chord stacks and then create something that was more melodic and cohesive sounding. That's what turned into this. So I'm using the same chord stacks as the previous sessions. I'm using some filter automation with an EQ and some gain automation to accentuate those gaps of reverb. So it breathes a little bit more, and also there's that little auto pan flutter effect right there. Yeah, so the stacks are pretty much the same, but as far as the bass goes, I felt that the original bass that we had didn't really function as like a nice legato foundational bass for these pads. So I'm actually using this a modified preset of the bass pad that I used in my song with Last Heroes called Lush, and it sounds like this. It's made with Massive. So it's really just an operator sub, and then the mid part of the bass. As this massive patch, I'm using Grown, Rough Math, and Modern Talking as the wavetables, and then using some phase modulation and some ring mod and some position modulation in the patch. And then in the voicing, I am using a bunch of unison voices to kind of give it a similar effect as this supercells. And my philosophy behind this is to create a bass that layers well with supercells, you kind of have to create something that is in the middle of like an actual like solid bass and something that is more like a pad, kind of like the supercells. And when you combine all of those together, you get this effect that almost sounds like one sound. Like the chords and the bass all kind of function as a unified pad. In addition to that, I am introducing a kind of a lead pad sound that is accentuating some of the voices in the chords. This is just Serum. I am using warped saw waves, and then I'm also using white noise as the detune modulator for them. Without the noise, they sound like this. But if I increase the noise, it kind of gives it that nice grit. And then layer it all together. I'm also adding a little bit of these leads back into the second drop. And this lead sound is a modified preset in Dune, and then also a harmony layer for it as well. And for the mastering, I am using Ozone 5 for multiband compression, some harmonic exciting, just to saturate a little bit of the low end, make it a little bit fuller, and then a little bit of the high mids, and then some stereo imaging, widening out the top end slightly, and then making the low end mono. Then I'm going through a Pro Q3 just to tame a little bit of these excessive treble frequencies, and also using a low shelf to balance out the sub. And then I'm using a little bit of Soothe just for some de-essing in just overall, just take out some of the harshness to make it a little bit smoother. Very subtle stuff. And then for maximizing, I am using FabFilter Pro L. And yeah, that's pretty much all it is for my master processing. So yeah, this is the entire song, Happy Where We Are, with Tritonal and Dylan Matthew.